merch shop, and Patreon if you wish to support me.
Video time, enjoy!
Critical Role Campaign 3, big show with entertaining players. I listen to them once in a while in the background while doing other things, not in full concentration. I think I'm at episode 7 if I remember right. Anyways, I heard a claim a few months ago that Ashton Greymore was overpowered as a barbarian. So let's find out. Let's calculate their character. Let's look into their barbarian subclass. Welcome to Pack Tactics. I can see here they picked ASI instead of Great Weapon Master. Their strength is 18, they're level 5 at the moment. Now, I know they started with a magical maul, no idea what it is, but Reddit told me it's a +2 weapon, so I'm going with that. Also, chances are high they're raging, so +2 rage damage is added to the mix. I also don't see Matt throwing more than 2 fights a day. So versus a creature with 15 AC, their chance to hit is then 75%. That's 23.2 DPR. With advantage, it's 96% to hit, 30.16 DPR. Let's compare that to Laudna's baseline. This is just her casting Hex plus Eldritch Blast. You'll notice Ashton is 5.4 points above the baseline. If they Reckless or Flank to get advantage, it's 12.36 points above. Optimally, Ashton should always be Reckless attacking like any barbarian really. 30.16 DPR is good. There are times where Reckless attacking isn't the move to make, like if they're flanking a single creature. Also, they really shouldn't care about the enemies flanking them if they're just Reckless attacking enemies anyways. If Ashton picked Great Weapon Master instead of ASI at level 4, their DPR would be higher. I run an optimization channel, so I have to mention this. I don't think I ever have. I'm not telling them what they should have done. It's their character. I don't care what they do, but I have to mention this anyways. Let's pretend Ashton did. They would have 17 strength instead. When using Great Weapon Master versus a creature with 15 AC, their chance to hit is then 45%. That's 22.3 DPR. And with advantage, it's 70% to hit, 34.96 DPR. The Reckless attacking with Great Weapon Master is almost a 5-point increase in damage compared to the ASI that Ashton picked. So, there you go. Is Ashton overshadowing someone like Laudna? No, we're talking about melee versus range and martials versus full caster. It's not Laudna's job to do damage, but she absolutely can if she wants to. That baseline is good enough for the job. Her job is rather to cast the big spells or do the shutdown effects like Form of Dread out of the gates through the lens of basic player strategy. We're talking about 1 or 2 encounter days here, guys. She has more resources than Ashton. Ashton can only rage 3 times and then need a long rest. Matt is fully aware of that. Barbarians should absolutely do more damage in a ranged cantrip plus a first level spell combo. If they don't, then there's no point of picking the class to begin with. Anyways, Laudna will always have the upper hand if she picks good spells. Matt knew what he was doing when he handed that +2 weapon to Ashton, and I do believe that. Here's why. Let's pretend Ashton never got that +2 weapon and is using a regular maul. Versus a creature with 15 AC, their chance to hit is then 65%. That's 17.6 DPR. With advantage, it's 88% to hit, 24.24 DPR. They're now doing worse than a ranged cantrip plus a first level spell combo. Ashton is a dedicated damage dealer. It's all they can do. Laudna's not damage focused at all, but she's doing more damage than a dedicated damage dealer. That's very bad. Yes, if Ashton just keeps Reckless attacking, they'll consistently stay over the baseline, sure, but as soon as Laudna gets advantage somehow, they're back to underperforming again. And I mean, it's not much. We're talking about 0 point something numbers here. But again, the range is significant and the resources she uses are vastly superior. As soon as she gets 3rd level spells, she'll have better things to do than this silly combo like fireballing everything. I don't know what she's gonna grab, by the way, but it wouldn't surprise me. So yeah, that +2 weapon is needed. It's good DMing. Matt knows what he's doing. back to the subject. The class is the path of the fundamental chaos. At the time of this recording, I don't have the rules as written, but rather what the wiki says. This should be good enough in my opinion. How complex can a barbarian subclass be? Chaos Burst adds 2d4 damage to a weapon attack twice a day. Damage type depends on a die roll. This is like smiting, but slightly worse. 5 average damage. I do like it though. Barbarians really do need something like this. If Ashton uses this, then his average damage is 28.2. And if he swings with advantage, it's 35.16 average. Next, and this is really why I wanted to make this video, gravity builds. Enemies within 15 feet seem to be pulled towards Ashton and suffer disadvantage on attacks against creatures other than Ashton. Lastly, Temporal Morris. When raging, the target must make a Constitution saving throw to avoid having their speed halved and lose their reactions. Fascinating. I want these mechanics in the base game. This is an AoE aggro feature. AoE aggro doesn't exist in the base game at all. All of the aggro mechanics in 5e are super duper bad. They're simply not good enough for builds. No one picks them. They're all single target. If this gravity build feature was in the game, we would have our first proper tank in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. A real sponge that actually works. Unlike the other quote-unquote sponges, this one sucks in water when you squeeze it. And it's at a 15-foot radius AoE. Con save to half their speed, and they lose their reactions. Awesome! But Kobold, what are you talking about? First proper tank? What do you even mean by that? The role of the tank is to get hit so your friends don't take damage. There's mechanically no rules for aggro in the base game whatsoever. You as a barbarian can taunt the flying dragon to try to get him to land to fight you like a man. However, there are no rules in the game that say the dragon has to land. The DM chooses. A smart dragon would never land, and instead just do flybys and continue to breathe fire at a safe distance and behind cover if possible. And you know, dragons is part of the title of the game. Chances are very high that you're gonna see a dragon at one point. A dumb dragon would land. They're a skirmisher of the skies. They're not beefy at all. They can't take a lot of beatings. Anyways, a good DM wants all their players to feel useful, so obviously he lands the dragon anyways. This is a glaring problem in the game for martials. Good DMs don't want players to know this flaw in the game, and I understand why. It's really awkward when I have to point things out like this, because I come off as the bad guy. Well, to be fair, I'm a very stereotypical kobold who's also lawful evil. Have you seen how I run this channel? And I know Ashton can't get dragons out of the sky either. 15-foot range isn't good enough. So that's why I hope they get a feature maybe next level that can force flying creatures out of the sky at long ranges. Kind of like a reverse gravity or something. Anti-flight subclasses for melee martials should be a thing in 5th edition. It would be so awesome, but it doesn't exist. Unheard of. You defeat a melee martial by flying up. I hope the DM gave them lightning javelins to make up for this flaw. I swear to Pun Pun. Another thing, and this has to do with common monsters. Normally a DM would have the creatures charge whoever is in front, or is the quote-unquote tank, but there's nothing in the rules that say they have to do any of that. Maybe that's a good thing in tabletop game design, but the point is the monsters can charge after anyone they want. The tank doesn't have features that forces the enemies to only attack them. The DM picks if this character has aggro or not. The DM picks if this player becomes a tank or not for this fight. Strategically and mathematically, this especially applies to smart enemies. There's no gain in attacking the barbarian because he has resistance. So it's just to simply walk right past them and attack the other players who instead pose a bigger threat, like the wizard. Who cares if one of them baits a single opportunity attack from a barbarian? Once that is out of the way, everyone can move past the barbarian without a threat. Oh, who cares if he has Sentinel? Oh, he shut down one guy. Oh, good job. Like you would think, giving a simple AoE feature to all the martial classes in the game would be a good idea as part of their class progression, but it doesn't exist. This example here is a real thing that can happen. I've seen it many times too. There's nothing this barbarian can do about it because AoE aggro doesn't exist. The DM in this example ignored the barbarian. The barbarian can intimidate all he wants and it won't do anything according to the rules. There's one exception where tanking does exist, and everyone can do it, and it's doorway dodging. If a player is blocking a door while allies are in the back, that player is now tanking. The enemies are forced to attack the player blocking the door. They can't get to the back line properly. That's a real thing. Besides that one example, tanking doesn't exist. Tabletop builds have their own article. They wrote more things about tanking, if you want to check that out. Last point when it comes to tanking, even if say AoE aggro features were in the game, sadly with only basic optimization, there aren't any squishy roles that need tanking anyways in order to survive. A wizard with mage armor, absorb elements and shield is plenty enough defense, for example. Here's Laudna. She has 13 AC with leather armor or something and shield spell, so that's easily 18 AC. If she picked up mage armor, that's 15 AC. And when cast shield, that's a total of 20 AC. Laudna should be fine so long as she doesn't volunteer into melee. And from what I've seen so far, she's good at doing that, you know? Hey, maybe that's a good thing in game design not to need these roles, but it hurts this role significantly. There's no point to build for it when basic optimization solves it. Still though, I do think AoE aggro features should be in the game. It would be healthy. So I like Ashton Grey more mechanically. No, they're not broken, by the way. It's the most interesting barbarian subclass I've seen so far in 5th edition homebrew. I want AoE aggro mechanics in the game. You get the point. I hope I earned your subscription or support on Patreon. If you pay $20, you can play D&D with me once a month. Buy a t-shirt if you want, I don't know. Thank you for watching.
Bye-bye.